Yeah. Boom to the hay, all your sports fans out there in the tubosphere. To you, the individuals, part of the collective. Welcome to Fast Track Sports Rack Highlights here on Talk Radio version of the OMSR. I am your brief but concise host, Will, the alternative ESPN Sports Thrill. Always do a little show like this. Let you know the clipboard are coming up. It's always nice to know what you're getting into. Talking briefly and concisely about Texas, comments about Baylor in general. Brouhaha. Edmond, linebacker, correct. So on the quickie sport rant of the segment, I will just say that if you must say something, I do it all the time here on the OMSR. You should hear some of the voiceovers I've done. For some reason, when I do shows live from the set, it's spot on. Rarely a take two. I'm sitting around comfortable, you know, got the ocean in the background. For some reason, I flub up. Take 4, take 5, even do rehearsals, still mess it up. Always do a practice take to sort of work out what I want to convey. And the point being, on social media, if you are going to say something about an opponent, diplomacy is the best order of the day, without a doubt. Of course, that's a difficult thing to get down when you're only in your 20s. I'm still trying to get it down in my early 40s. So that's what's coming up. And Andre warned about this last year at this time. That's actually one of the shows I kept on the channel, even though it didn't generate a whole lot of interest. The problems with constant contact, texting, email, and all that sort of jazz. So I'm probably going to include a link so you can check that out. Because I haven't seen him in a while, I find it interesting from my perspective that the next time he's on, we're sort of talking about the same similar thing. I don't think college football players can be trusted with Twitter accounts, right? Now, how do you police that? You can't. All right. All the video highlights courtesy to ESPN, College Football Live, everything else to the OMSR. Thanks for watching those silly DUIs while you're out there. Roll clips.
Welcome to College Football Live. Steve Weissman, Joe Shedd, the Heisman Trophy winner Andre Ware in the house. We've got a war of words going on between Texas and Baylor. Get to that in a minute. But first, our biggest news stories of the day in our College Football Live Minute. The NCAA has notified Mississippi State that it will not face any punishment in the probe allegedly involving former Alabama linebacker Luther Davis and agents for prospective draft picks. Elsewhere, Michigan head coach Brady Hoke says sophomore quarterback Shane Morris has closed the gap on incumbent starter Devin Gardner this spring. Hoke was non-committal about Gardner starting, saying, quote, he might. And former USC quarterback Max Whittick reportedly visited Texas for its spring game Saturday, his third visit to the campus this spring, second time since the Longhorns began spring practice. Speaking of Texas, some unusual post-spring game remarks by linebacker Steve Edmond, who took some shots at Baylor, was not prompted by this. Take a look at this. I really don't like Baylor. I still think they're trash. I'm mad as I can be. I knew we were a better team than they were, and then Baylor gets the win and acts like they had never won before. I'm like, they won it, so what? They still suck to me. Huh. Well, in today's age of social media, some Baylor players fired back on Twitter. Troy Baker actually sent out a photo of the Big 12 championship with the caption, I love this trash too. Touche, Troy. Orion Stewart said, they ain't been nothing since Vince Young left. All right, Texas lost to Baylor 30-10 last December. Edmond didn't even play. He was injured in that game. But you know what, Charlie Strong, he wanted a new attitude, Andre. He wanted to change the whole perception of the team. Is this a good thing?
Yeah, no, this is not a good thing. And linebackers shouldn't be talking trash. When I was at Houston, we ran a offense that was similar to what Baylor does. And you wanted linebackers on the field because you knew exactly what you were going to get defensively. You're in zone coverage most of the time because they can't lock up man-to-man on your slot receivers. So you'd wear them out. You'd just go at them, look them off, and just have your way down the field with them. So you stop talking if you're a linebacker playing defense against an offense like Baylor, who's averaged about 40 points a game, right around 40 points a game on Texas the last 4 years. Just shut up and go play.
I totally disagree with you. Kudos to this young man for
until they lighten him up this year.
The rivalry, for taking that loss as motivation, for saying, you know what, under Mac Brown, we tried to say all the right things. We tried to be politically correct. We tried to be respectful of everybody. You know what? This is turning the page to a new era. We're going to be feisty. We're going to be aggressive. We're going to be more passionate. When you think about Texas at their worst, especially defensively the last few years, there were times where those Texas defenders looked like they didn't even want to be on the field.
Yeah. Well, internally, they might say that, and Charlie Strong would be on board with saying that internally.
I'm sure they
But
are.
I can guarantee you, if I know Charlie Strong like I think I know him, this is not okay to lash out and to really light a fire before the game even starts. Go out and play.
There's a lot of frustration from these Texas players that has been built up.
Yeah, I mean,
A lot of frustration. You see here 3 of the last 4 meetings.
and they've averaged those losses by 17 points in those games.
And here's what makes it worse for these guys. These Texas players are used to beating the heck out of these Baylor players in high
the
school.
last 4 years.
In high school. So you look at the recruiting rankings, Texas has been 16, 16, 3, 5, 2. Baylor 22, 28 unranked. So they're beating them with players that have 2 and 3 stars.
Exactly.
And they're beating those guys.
And it goes all the way back to 1989 when I played against Texas. And I was one of those guys that was maybe on Baylor's squad at this time. So you're basically stroking my fire. You're getting me ready before the game even starts. And you don't take that kindly when you're a 2-star or whatever star coming out of high school and you're not good enough to go play Texas. When you put it on them, man, that feels good. You ought to celebrate a little bit, just like Baylor's doing.
That said, Andre, all right, it's coming from Baylor on the other side as well. I mean, they're tweeting stuff out, so I don't know what Art Briles thinks about that.
Well, he doesn't like it either.
How much does this motivate you as a player? I mean, are you going into the game and saying, you know what, Edmond said this, I'm going to get
If
him.
you're going to rate it in terms of motivation, it's certainly motivating Baylor more so than it is, or doing a better job for Baylor than it is Texas. We got the prize already. We've whipped you 3 of the last 4 years. You know, you come get it. We're opening a brand new stadium.
Right.
We're riding a lot of momentum recruiting-wise. They're basically out recruiting Texas at this point right now. So they're in a better state as a program, in my opinion, than Texas is. You're playing catch-up to Baylor.
And this kind of helps Baylor as well. I mean, anytime that Texas makes a statement about anybody else in that state, that raises the profile of that school, right? So this is good for the Big 12 in general.
No doubt about it.
There has been a notion about sense of entitlement, this idea that if you're born in the state of Texas, what state were you born in? Where are you born?
I'm right there in Texas.
Okay, so did you
Galveston, right?
Galveston, Texas.
Did you
look at you?
Did you feel like, hey, you know what, if I get a chance to go to Texas, I'm going to go there? Is that...
I was going to Texas. All they had to do was lie to me and tell me I was going to play quarterback once I got there. Thank goodness they told me the truth, which they were going to move me to defense, and I didn't even take the visit, ended up at Houston, and we put it on them 3 years in a row. So that really, you know, you start talking during the offseason, it was enough that you weren't good enough to go there and play a position. It's extra when you hear that side of it talk noise, and you've already beaten them the 3 of the last 4 years.
October 4th, mark it on your calendars in Austin. That's when it's going down.
We're gonna
Texas.
have
something to talk about for the next 4 months, so that's fantastic for us. Since 2010, by the way, Baylor has the best winning percentage of all FBS teams in the state of Texas. UT ranks 5th, but as we look here, no surprise, Texas is the winningest team among former AQ schools in the Lone Star State. They only trail Michigan for most wins all time. And among all former AQ schools in the state, the Horns followed in order by A&M, TCU, Baylor, and Texas Tech. But like I said, since 2010, Baylor does have the best winning percentage. So I'm going to start with you, Dre. Get your top 5 Texas teams from former AQ conference schools.
You know, first up for me, it would be TCU, who last year finished a dismal 4-8, 2-7 in conference. Gary Patterson's done a nice job there. But, you know, as of late, when you start liking TCU, they've kind of fallen off a little bit, and that really shows up in recruiting. As next up, Texas Tech, 7-5, a nice start for Cliff Kingsbury, but he's got to be a little bit better. They got off to a fantastic start to the season, slowly finished, or just slid in at the end of the season. He's got to do a better job in terms of recruiting, because recruiting in the state of Texas can flip like a light switch. You can be on 1 second, that's Texas, and then you could be, you know, trailing the big boys, so to speak. Texas, speaking of Texas, I have them 3rd because there's some huge expectations with Charlie Strong. I think they're unrealistic expectations in the first year because of quarterback problems, offensive line problems. They've got some problems in the secondary. So you look at it, they may struggle a little bit in Charlie Strong's first year. Then Baylor, who I think has been magical, leading the nation in passing offense last year. They can put up points, 40 of them against Texas the last 4 years is what they've averaged, and mean, they are out recruiting the University of Texas right now, just behind Texas A&M, who I think with Kevin Sumlin has done an outstanding job. But hold the horses, because he's run out of players for Mike Sherman's regime, and now they're all Kevin Sumlin's players. We're going to get to see just how good of a coach Kevin Sumlin is with his own stuff.
I got a few adjustments in my top 5 in comparison to yours. So we're going to start off with Texas Tech at number 5. Davis Webb better stay healthy, and Texas Tech better find a way to improve on defense. They need more depth along the defensive line, maybe some junior college players. I have TCU at number 4 on my list. I know that last year was a disaster, but Gary Patterson is starting over with a new high-tempo, high-octane style of offense. Maybe Matt Jokel is the answer. Maybe a incoming freshman might be the answer. They must be better on offense. I'm going to go Baylor at 3. I know Andre has them at number 2. Common sense says they're going to take a little bit of a step back, losing players to the NFL draft like safety Ahmad Dixon. These players are very difficult to replace. Texas at number 2. The Baylor fans aren't going to be happy with me. Some of those Baylor players might tweet at me, just like they did that Texas player. But I think that Charlie Strong is the right answer. It might take them a little bit of time. It's a difficult schedule, but I still think that they have the most talent and the most potential. And number 1 is going to be Texas A&M. Certainly, to this point, it looks like the move to the SEC is the right decision. It's never easy to replace a player like Johnny Manziel, but Kevin Sumlin has done such a terrific job loading up at all the skill positions.
Baylor beats Texas. How do you have them at number 3?
I know they beat him 3 out of the last 4 years.
And then all he does, really, he loses players every year. RG3 replaces him with Nick Foles. Loses Foles, and then here comes Bryce Petty. I mean, it's just Nick Florence, I'm sorry. And it's Bryce Petty steps up. They've got enough coming back where I think Baylor's going to be just fine.
He does more with less.
He recruits to his system. He'll go out and get a track guy, teach him how to catch, and then all of a sudden you've got an all-conference receiver. That is coaching and developing players.